Climate change knows no boundaries. Collectively, we can be the solution seekers.
The Middle Rio Grande Valley, which extends from the Cochiti Diversion Dam all the way down to Elephant Butte, is a really great area for migrating birds. During migration season, all the different types of bird species that are coming through here are looking for places for food, for places for shelter. Over the last couple of years within this reach, we've seen the river go dry. The Rio Grande is not grande. That's becoming more and more familiar with us.
We're seeing a shift in our annual hydrology. We're seeing a trend that is overall reducing annual snowpack, creating drier soil conditions so that whenever we do have runoff, that water is taking longer to show up in rivers and streams.
We're all well aware that we're under a changing climate. That means we are also under changing habitats and changing patterns among our wildlife, and we need to adapt and continue providing what these species need.
You could almost consider this area as a study area or a pilot area as to how things may go within the entire annual cycle or the entire range of these birds across the landscape. This area is a good example of how we need to start thinking about things in the West. Today we were trapping sandhill cranes that are associated with the Rocky Mountain population. So in 2013, we started a project deploying GPS units that track birds and help us learn how they use the landscape within the Middle Rio Grande. And we've identified the most important areas for them throughout the course of that annual cycle. And then that information feeds into state agencies' habitat management. So what habitats are they focused on in specific states or on specific refuges on the landscape? And then looking out from those publicly owned areas, what's on the private landscape? What are they providing? Because it's a matrix of both public and private land, and I would say that private lands play a bigger role than we think. Those working landscapes are huge, especially on the breeding grounds with those wet meadow hayfields and wet meadow areas that they graze.
What makes this area important is that anything that we do conservation-wise or to provide benefits for these species also has a similar far-reaching impact throughout the entire portion of the flyway.
The Middle Valley is not anywhere else in the world. We have a very unique ecosystem. We have a very unique setup of traditional surface flood irrigation. And so as much as outside data and science can be used to inform decision-making here, it really comes down to partners and agency groups doing science and data here locally to inform that decision-making.
Within the Middle Rio Grande, we have multiple Pueblo tribes that have lived here for hundreds of years, and this has been their home. They know the ecology of the river, and they've seen it go up and down, dry, very wet, and I think that it's important to speak to those and create a partnership with them and kind of gain some of their knowledge of what the river has done, what practices work, what doesn't work.
So I think as we build these relationships, we have to look at it holistically from that perspective of who we are as place-based peoples, because it's integral to our identity. And the more I believe that we have Indigenous scientists coming out, the more we're able to validate not just local or traditional knowledge, but even the use of our own terminology when it comes to interpreting, deciphering the scientific information that's coming out and how to make it relevant. There are ways I feel that we could work with both capacities as far as Western science and traditional ecological knowledge. It's important that there's that overall capacity building, given that we can't do this on our own.
All the science and knowledge does not matter if we don't have partnerships. We have multiple agencies working on different projects, and that's always a challenge to bring everybody to the table.
24.9.
If we can get the fish people and the bird people to sit down together, I feel like whatever habitat you're creating for the minnow can benefit also the birds.
I feel like one of the bottlenecks that we really need to address from a conservation standpoint is further discussing the benefits that this wildlife can provide to our farmers and ranchers so that they can partake in the wildlife management activities and expand the areas across which management are occurring so that we can garner the support needed to continue our conservation efforts.
The need for conservation needs to be paired with the need for extended support to agriculture that also has a benefit to these other resources such as wildlife habitat and people.